Rain pounded hard against the cracked roof of the tiny mud house. Inside, Mama Uncombe struggled to keep the fire alive as water dripped from the ceiling. Her trembling hands held a small clay pot of soup, the only food she had left. A sharp wind blew through the door, scattering ashes. She pressed her wrapper tighter around her chest and whispered, "Chukwu, keep my children safe. Wherever they are, don't let the city swallow them." But miles away, in that same storm, a black Toyota screeched to a halt at a junction. Obinna jumped out in anger. "Adaeze, are you blind? I told you to check the tire before we left," he shouted. "I did," she fired back, rain streaming down her cheeks. "Maybe you should stop shouting and change it yourself." "Enough!" Chike, the youngest, slammed the door and groaned. "You two are acting like kids. We'll be late for the interview." "Late?" Obinna smirked. "You still think we have time for village nonsense? We left that life behind. The city is our future." And just like that, those words sealed their fate. The three siblings had left their poor mother behind 2 years earlier. No visits, no calls, no letters. They promised to return once they made it. But the city had swallowed their hearts whole. Back in the village, Mama Uncombe sat by her small oil lamp every night, staring at the door as if her children would walk in any moment. "Maybe tomorrow," she would whisper. "Maybe tomorrow they will come." But tomorrow never came. One cold morning, the village children ran past her hut, shouting that a trader's lorry had arrived. Mama Uncombe forced herself up, her frail knees shaking. Maybe, just maybe, her children had sent something home. She waited by the roadside, smiling through her missing teeth, clutching the drum her late husband had carved. The drum she believed carried the soul of her family. But as the lorry drove past, it carried nothing for her. Only dust. Her neighbor, Mama Uju, sighed. "Uncombe, stop waiting for those city children. They've forgotten this place." Mama Uncombe smiled weakly. No mother forgets her child, even when they forget her. That night, thunder roared again, and the old woman coughed violently. She reached for the drum, pressing it to her chest. "When they come back, tell them I waited," she whispered, and fell silent forever. 3 weeks later, the village buried her quietly. No children, no one from the city. Just 3 women and 1 pastor singing, "Neem Yenke Oma." Miles away in Lagos, Obinna sealed a contract worth millions. "To success," he toasted, raising a glass. Adaeze clinked hers proudly. "Mama would be proud," she said, and they all laughed. But later that night, as Obinna signed the final papers, the pen refused to move. He shook it, annoyed, then froze. A faint sound echoed through his office window. Dum, dum, dum. He turned, sharply. The street was empty. The sound came again. Steady, rhythmic, distant. Like a drum being played in the rain. "Probably from a wedding nearby," he muttered, brushing it off. But deep down, his chest tightened. The next day, Adaeze stood in her boutique, arranging fabrics, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, "Hello?" A soft, raspy voice replied, "Adaeze, why didn't you come home?" Her body stiffened. "Who is this?" No response, just the faint dum, dum, dum of a drum before the line went dead. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing her mother's voice, the way she used to hum when pounding yam. "Mama," she whispered in the dark, tears welling up. But only silence answered. Meanwhile, Chike sat in a noisy bar, laughing with friends. He was the carefree one, always living on borrowed money and charm. But as he raised his glass, his hand began to shake uncontrollably. The TV flickered. The sound of drums filled the air. "Hey, what's that?" he asked, looking around. No one else seemed to hear it. He stumbled out into the night, heart racing. The drums followed him, faint at first, then louder, closer, until it felt like they were beating inside his chest. He screamed, covering his ears. "Stop! Leave me alone!" A passing stranger looked at him with pity. "Young man, who are you shouting at?" Chike ran. By morning, he sat on the floor of his small apartment, drenched in sweat, clutching his chest. He grabbed his phone and dialed Adaeze. "Sis, something's wrong. I think Mama's calling us." Adaeze's voice trembled. "You too?" They called Obinna. "Don't tell me you're hearing drums too," he snapped. "Enough of this village superstition." "But Obinna," Adaeze pleaded. "It feels real. Like she's—" "Stop it," he shouted. "Mama is gone. She lived her life in poverty because she refused to change. We're not going back." He hung up. But as he turned toward his office mirror, he froze. In the reflection, behind him, a faint shadow of an old woman stood by the window, holding a drum. He spun around. Nothing. The mirror cracked. He stumbled back, trembling. No, this isn't real." But the drums grew louder. 2 weeks later, all 3 siblings were suffering. Obinna's company faced an audit. Adaze's shop caught fire. Chike was accused of theft at his job. The city that once sparkled now felt cursed. When Adaeze walked into her empty store, the smell of burnt fabric filled her lungs. On the wall, through the smoke, she saw words scratched in soot. "Come home." She fell to her knees, sobbing. "Mama, what have we done?" At midnight, the 3 met in Obinna's apartment. They sat in silence for minutes, afraid to speak. Finally, Chike broke it. "You all hear it now, right?" The drums started again, faint, distant, mournful. Obinna clenched his jaw. "Fine, we'll go. 1 trip. End this nonsense." The next morning, they boarded a rickety bus heading east. The roads were muddy, the sky gray. None of them spoke. Adaeze held a picture of their mother, the last one taken before they left. "She deserved better," she whispered. The bus hit a pothole hard. The sound of the impact echoed like a drumbeat. "Dumb. Dumb. Dumb." Adaeze gasped. "Did you hear that?" "Stop!" Obinna snapped. "It's just the road!" But Chike stared out the window, pale. "No, bro, it's her. She's waiting." As they approached the village, fog thickened. The fields looked overgrown, the houses quiet. When they reached Mama and Kem's hut, the door was half open. Inside, dust, silence, and an old drum sitting in the center of the room. Adaeze stepped closer. It's glowing." "Don't touch it," Obinna warned. But the moment she did, the drum vibrated gently, releasing a low hum. Then a voice, soft but clear, filled the room. "You left me." The siblings froze. "Who's there?" Chike whispered. "You left me when I needed you most," the voice said again, sorrowful but calm. "Now you have come back. But will you stay?" A gust of wind blew out the candle they had lit. Darkness swallowed the room. Adaeze screamed. The drum began to beat on its own. "Dum, dum, dum." "Mama," Obinna whispered, trembling. "Is that you?" The door slammed shut behind them. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful African folklore tales. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Inside the hut, the air grew colder. The drumbeats grew faster, matching the siblings' heartbeat. Obinna shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" But the voice answered, "Did I stop calling when you forgot me?" Adaeze fell to her knees, weeping. "Mama, we're sorry! We thought we'd come back rich and take you away from this place." The drum fell silent for a moment. Then a faint humming began, the same lullaby Mama and Kem used to sing. "Do you remember the song?" she whispered. They did. All three started humming, trembling, voices breaking. As they sang, the wind calmed. A faint light filled the hut, revealing their mother's ghostly figure sitting by the drum, smiling through tears. But as they reached out, her image flickered. And then something unexpected happened. The drum cracked open, revealing something inside. A small, folded paper covered in oil stains. Obinna picked it up slowly and opened it. His eyes widened. It was a deed, land ownership papers, signed in their mother's name. Beneath it, a note written in shaky handwriting. "My children, I saved this land for you. Come home when your hearts remember love, not money." Tears rolled down Obinna's face. She left this for us." Adaeze touched the note with trembling fingers. "Even after everything." Suddenly, thunder rolled again, but the drum didn't beat. It had split open completely, revealing ashes at its base. Their mother's ashes. Chike whispered. She was waiting inside all along. Outside, the fog thickened again, but this time, the sound was not drums. It was footsteps. Someone was coming. The footsteps stopped right outside the hut. A dim lantern appeared through the fog. The siblings held their breath. "Who's there?" Obinna called, his voice trembling. "It's me, Pastor Ikenna," came a weary voice. "I saw your bus arrive. The whole village knows you've returned." The door creaked open, and the old pastor stepped in, rain dripping from his umbrella. His eyes moved from the broken drum to their pale faces. "So, you finally came home." Obinna swallowed hard. "We didn't know she was gone." Pastor Ikenna sighed deeply. "You didn't come for her burial either." Adaeze broke into tears. "Nobody told us." The pastor looked at her quietly. "She told me not to send word. Said if your hearts remembered her, you'd come on your own." Silence. Only the hiss of rain outside. Chike knelt by the drum. "She forgave us, even before we asked." Pastor Ikenna nodded. "That's what mothers do. But her spirit hasn't rested. Every night since she died, people say they hear the drum." Adaeze's eyes widened. "We heard it too, all the way from the city." The pastor stared at them, startled. "Then she's truly calling you." He placed the lantern beside the ashes. "Her soul lingers until something is made right. You must give her peace." "How?" Obinna asked, almost whispering. The pastor turned to him. "She was buried without honor. You must rebury her properly, with love this time." Obinna looked down, guilt flooding his chest. "We'll do it. We'll do everything." That night they stayed in the hut, unable to sleep. The rain had stopped, but the silence pressed heavy. Adaeze sat near the drum fragments, tracing her fingers over the cracks. "It's strange," she whispered. "Even broken, it's beautiful." Chike stared at the ashes. "You think she's really here?" "Not just here," Adaeze said. "Everywhere." Then, faintly, from outside, the drums began again. Slow, soft, almost like a heartbeat. Dum. 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 Obinna stood. "It's coming from the old well." They stepped out together, carrying the lantern. The village was asleep. Only the moon lit their path. They reached the well at the edge of the village, where the sound grew louder. When they looked down, they saw reflections, not their own, but their mother's. Her face smiled up at them, peaceful, glowing faintly. "Mama," Adaeze whispered, falling to her knees. Her voice echoed softly from the water. "My children, you came." The siblings froze. Obinna's lips quivered. "We're sorry, Mama. We forgot who we were." Her voice was calm, sad. "I waited every sunset, every rainfall. I told the wind to carry your names to me, but it brought only silence." The reflection shimmered. "Bring me home to rest. Then, you'll find peace." Then the image faded. and the water went still. The next morning, the whole village gathered. The siblings knelt beside a new grave, this time with flowers and music. Pastor Ikenna led the prayers. Let this mother's soul rest, and let her children's hearts find their way again. As the final drumbeat faded, a warm breeze passed through the crowd. Everyone looked up. The sky, once gray, now glowed gold. That night, the siblings sat outside the hut around a small fire. I can breathe again, Chike said softly, like something heavy just left my chest. Adaeze smiled faintly. Mama's gone home. But Obinna stared into the flames, uneasy. Then why do I still feel her near? Adaeze frowned. What do you mean? He poked the fire with a stick. When Pastor Ikenna spoke at the grave, I heard her voice again. She said something strange. What? Chike asked. She said, You brought me peace, but who will bring you yours? Adaeze went quiet. Maybe she meant forgiveness isn't finished yet. Chike looked around. Forgiveness from who? Obinna sighed. Maybe from each other. They sat in silence, the fire crackling. But in the distance, faint laughter echoed. Children's laughter, though the village was asleep. Adaeze's head snapped up. Did you hear that? Yes, Chike whispered. Where's it coming from? They followed the sound to the path leading to the river. There, under the moonlight, 3 little children were playing, but their faces were blurred, shadowed. One held a tiny drum. Adaeze called out, Who are you? The children stopped and turned. For a brief moment, the light caught their faces, and the siblings gasped. They were younger versions of themselves. The smallest, who looked like young Chike, smiled. You forgot to say goodbye. Obinna stumbled backward. No, this isn't real. The children began to fade like mist, leaving behind the echo of their laughter. When it was gone, Adaeze burst into tears. She's showing us memories, reminding us who we were. They walked back slowly, hearts heavy. That night, none of them spoke again. The following morning, Obinna woke up coughing. His head pounded, his vision blurred. Adaeze and Chike rushed to him. Obinna, what's wrong? Adaeze asked. He could barely speak. The drums. They're inside my head. They called Pastor Ikenna. When he arrived, Obinna was trembling. Sweat pouring down his face. This is not sickness, the pastor said quietly. It's spiritual. The spirit of guilt still holds him. He sprinkled water around and began to pray, but Obinna screamed. Stop! She's angry! What is she saying? Adaeze cried. She says one of us took something that wasn't ours. They froze. What do you mean? Chike asked. Obinna's eyes went wide, his voice hoarse. Something she left behind. Someone hid it. The pastor stopped chanting. What did she leave behind? Adaeze's mind raced. The papers. The land deed. Could that be it? Chike shook his head. But we just found it in the drum. Obinna grabbed his chest. No, there's another one. What? Adaeze shouted. What are you talking about? Obinna coughed violently, gasping. Before we left the village years ago, I took the other paper. She told me not to sell the land. But I did. I sold it. I used the money to start my company. The air went cold. Adaeze's jaw dropped. You sold Mama's land? Obinna wept. I was desperate. I told myself I'd buy it back later, but I never did. Pastor Ikenna's voice trembled. Then her spirit won't rest until that is restored. Chike grabbed his brother's arm. You lied to us all this time? I thought it didn't matter, Obinna shouted. I thought money could fix everything. The drums began again, louder, furious, echoing through the walls. The fire in the hearth burst into tall flames. Adaeze screamed. She's angry. Obinna, Chike yelled, shaking him. Tell her you're sorry." Obinna fell to his knees. "Mama, please. I'll make it right. I swear I'll buy the land back." The wind howled through the hut. The ashes in the pot rose, swirling like a storm. And through it all came the voice again, this time strong, commanding. "Then do it before the moon fades." The flames died instantly. Pastor Ikenna helped Obinna to his feet. "You have until tomorrow night. Go to the man who owns the land now. Make peace." Obinna nodded, trembling. "I will." The next morning, he set out to find Chief Ude, the man who had bought the land years ago. The chief laughed when he arrived. "Ah, Obinna! You want to buy back what you sold for riches? Now you remember where you came from." "I'll pay double," Obinna pleaded. "Anything. Please." But the chief only smiled. "I've already sold it. To a foreign company." Obinna's face fell. "No, you can't." "It's done," the chief said coldly. "You can't bring back what's gone." Obinna staggered out of the compound, his chest tightening. The road spun before him. Then he heard it. The drum again. Faster, harder, mocking him. He fell to his knees in the dust. "Mama, forgive me! I've failed!" For a long moment, there was no sound but his sobs. Then a soft breeze brushed his face, and a voice whispered, "There is another way." He turned. There was no one there. He looked down at the ground and saw, half buried in the dust, a small wooden bead. He recognized it from Mama's drum. He picked it up, and suddenly he saw flashes, his mother pounding yam, singing, laughing. And then, the image of her handing the bead to a young girl in the village. The vision faded. He ran back to the hut, shouting for his siblings. "Adaeze! Chike! I saw her! I know what to do!" They rushed out. "What happened?" He held up the bead. "She gave this to someone, a girl. Maybe she's still here. Maybe she can help us." Before they could ask more, the sound of a child's laughter echoed again, this time closer, from behind the hut. They turned and saw a little girl, barefoot, wearing a red scarf, holding a small replica of Mama's drum. She smiled. "I've been waiting for you." The girl stood still, her eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Mama said you'd come when the drums called again," she said softly, clutching the tiny drum to her chest. Adaeze stepped closer, her voice trembling. "What's your name, my dear?" The little girl smiled. "Nena." Chike blinked. "That's Mama's name." Nena nodded slowly. "She said I carry her promise. The land is not lost, but hidden." Obinna's heart pounded. "Hidden? Where?" The girl tilted her head. "Where the sun first kissed her tears." Then she turned and ran toward the riverbank. They followed her, calling her name. "Nena! Wait!" The path was muddy, roots and shadows twisting beneath their feet. The sound of the drum guided them until they reached the river's edge, the same spot where Mama used to wash clothes when they were children. The moon shimmered over the water like liquid glass. Nena stood at the edge, pointing at a patch of soil near a large stone. "There," she whispered. Obinna hesitated. "What's there?" The girl looked up at him with eyes too wise for her age. "What you buried with your shame." Then, just like mist, she vanished. Chike gasped. "She's gone." Adaeze dropped to her knees and began to dig frantically with her hands. "Help me." Obinna and Chike joined her. The soil was damp, heavy. After a few minutes, their fingers struck something solid, a small wooden box covered in clay. They pulled it out carefully and opened it. Inside was another folded paper, old and yellowed, and beneath it, a carved pendant with their mother's initials. Obinna's voice broke. "This is her deed, the true one." Adaeze's tears fell onto the wood. "She never sold the land. You sold what was never yours." Obinna bowed his head. "I destroyed everything she built." Chike touched his shoulder. Then build it back, not with money, but with your heart. Before they could say more, the wind picked up, swirling around them. From the trees came the low hum of a song. Mama's song, the same lullaby she used to sing under the mango tree. Adaeze closed her eyes. She's here again. The melody grew louder, wrapping around them like a gentle embrace. The river glowed faintly, and from within its reflection, their mother's face appeared once more. Serene, yet watchful. "My children," her voice whispered, "you found what was lost, but not what was forgotten." Adaeze stepped forward. "What do you mean, Mama?" "Your hearts turned to stone long before I left this world. You must forgive each other, not with words, but with truth." Obinna's throat tightened. "Then I'll confess everything." He turned to his siblings. "I blamed both of you for leaving me with Mama when times were hard. I thought you didn't care. So I left too. I was ashamed of her poverty, of how people mocked her." Adaeze wept quietly. "I left because I was tired of being the one who stayed. I thought you both deserved the guilt, not me." Chike looked away. "And I left because I wanted freedom. But every night in the city, I dreamed of her sitting alone by the fire. I'd wake up crying." The reflection shimmered brighter. "Now you have spoken truth, but peace must be shared." Suddenly, the drum in Nena's hand began to beat on its own, its rhythm echoing across the water. The ground trembled softly, and the box they'd dug up began to glow. Inside, the pendant pulsed with light, and from it, a soft golden mist rose into the air. The siblings fell to their knees as the mist formed into the shape of their mother. This time, not in reflection, but standing before them, radiant and smiling. "Mama," Adaeze whispered, trembling. The figure stepped closer, touching each of their foreheads. "You have returned, not just to me, but to yourselves. The land was never cursed, your hearts were. Now go and rebuild what you destroyed." Obinna sobbed uncontrollably. "Forgive me, Mama. I'll make it right. I'll rebuild the farm, feed the people, restore your name." She nodded gently. "Then I can rest." Her light began to fade into the dawn. The mist lifted, leaving behind the pendant glowing faintly in Obinna's palm. The morning sun spilled over the hills as birds began to sing again. Back at the hut, Pastor Ikenna was waiting. When he saw them, he smiled knowingly. "You have done what many never do. You've found redemption." Obinna held out the pendant. "She gave this to us. What should we do with it?" The pastor placed his hand over it. "Keep it close. It will guide you when darkness tries to return." They all nodded. Adaeze turned to the camera, tears still glistening in her eyes. "If you've ever turned your back on someone who loved you, make things right before it's too late. Life doesn't always give second chances." If this story moved your heart, click subscribe, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share it. Someone out there might need this reminder. Days turned into weeks. The siblings began to rebuild the land, planting cassava, maize, and yam like their mother once did. They hired villagers to help, paying fair wages, repairing roofs, and restoring the well. Laughter returned to the compound. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the palm trees, Obinna stood watching the horizon. "We did it," he said softly. "We kept her promise." But Adaeze noticed something strange. "Where's Chike?" He was by the river again, staring at the water. When she reached him, he whispered, "I still hear it." "Hear what?" "The drum. It's faint, but it's there." They both listened. At first there was only the sound of the wind, but then, dum, 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 slow and rhythmic. Adaeze frowned. "Maybe it's just the wind." Chike shook his head. No, it's calling again. That night, he couldn't sleep. The sound kept growing louder, echoing through his dreams. He saw visions of his mother's face, but this time she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. At dawn, he rose quietly and walked toward the old mango tree. Beneath it lay the family's first farm tool, a rusted hoe Mama used every season. He picked it up, staring at the soil beneath. There, faintly carved into the bark of the tree, were words he'd never noticed before. "My debt is not of gold, but of blood." Chike stumbled backward. "What does that mean?" He ran back to the hut. "Obinna! Adaeze! You need to see this!" They followed him to the mango tree. The words glowed faintly under the rising sun. Obinna's brow furrowed. "That wasn't there before," Adaeze whispered. "Debt of blood?" Mama never hurt anyone. Before they could speak further, a shadow moved across the field. The figure of a woman, walking slowly toward them, her head covered in white cloth. Pastor Ikenna, who had been coming up the path, stopped in his tracks. "No, it can't be." The woman lifted her head, and though her face resembled their mother's, it was older, scarred, and filled with pain. "You freed her soul," she said softly, "but another remains bound." The air grew cold. "Who are you?" Adaeze asked. The woman's eyes shimmered. "I am the one your mother wronged." A silence heavier than thunder fell over them. The drums began again, faster this time, urgent and angry. The woman's words struck like thunder. "I am the one your mother wronged," she repeated, her voice trembling between sorrow and rage. Pastor Ikenna stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you, truly?" The woman turned to him, her eyes glinting under the morning light. "I am Mama Ugo, your mother's sister." Adaeze gasped. "That can't be. Mama said she had no siblings." The woman's lips trembled. She lied, because she feared what she did. The drums grew louder, echoing through the fields as the air thickened with tension. Obinna took a hesitant step forward. "What did she do?" Mama Ugo pointed toward the old mango tree. "Under that tree, long ago, I buried my son, your cousin. He died because of your mother's greed." Adaeze's eyes widened. "That's not true." "It is," the woman said bitterly. "We both loved the same man. He chose her. But when I gave birth to his son, she couldn't bear the shame. The villagers mocked her, called her the second wife. So, one night, when my boy was sick, she locked the medicine away. Said it was God's will. By dawn, he was gone." The silence was suffocating. The drums now beat like a racing heart. "Dumb, dumb, dumb, dumb." Obinna shook his head. "No, Mama couldn't. She was kind." Mama Ugo's voice softened. "She was kind, but she was also human. Her regret haunted her till her dying day. That is the debt she spoke of, the debt of blood." Adaeze fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "So that's why she couldn't rest. Because she couldn't face what she did." Pastor Ikenna closed his eyes. "And now the curse has passed to her children. You must break it." Chike's voice quivered. "How?" The woman extended her hand toward the pendant Obinna held. "The symbol of her guilt is in your hand. Bury it beside the child's resting place and ask for forgiveness, not for her, but for yourselves." They followed her trembling steps toward the base of the mango tree. The soil there looked freshly disturbed, though no one had touched it for years. The wind whispered through the leaves as they knelt together. Obinna placed the pendant in the dirt, tears streaming down his face. "Mama Ugo, on behalf of our mother, we ask your forgiveness." Adaeze added, "And for every pain we've caused since then." Chike bowed deeply. "Let peace return to this land." Mama Ugo looked at them for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled faintly. "Forgiveness isn't spoken. It's felt." She bent and pressed her hand into the earth. The moment her fingers touched the soil, the drums ceased. The air turned warm, golden, alive. The mango tree shimmered, its bark glowing softly like fireflies at dusk. From the ground rose a faint figure of a child, smiling, the lost son. He looked at Mama Ugo, then at the siblings. "Mama's sorry," he whispered. Mama Ugo wept openly for the first time in decades, and I forgive her. The child's light expanded until it wrapped around them all, filling the clearing with radiance. Then, one by one, the lights faded, leaving behind silence and a calm breeze. Pastor Ikenna exhaled deeply. "It is done." The siblings stared at one another, overwhelmed. Obinna whispered, "So the curse was never hers alone. It was ours too." Adaeze nodded. "We all carried it." They stood hand in hand as the first rays of sunrise broke over the fields. The drums were silent, but in that silence was peace. That evening, as they sat outside the hut watching the fire crackle, Obinna spoke softly. "Do you think Mama's finally resting now?" Adaeze smiled faintly. "Yes, and so is her sister." Chike poked at the fire. "What happens to the land now?" "We'll build a school here," Obinna said suddenly, "for the children of this village. Mama believed knowledge was light. Let her legacy shine." Adaeze's eyes glimmered. "A school? I like that." Pastor Ikenna, sitting nearby, nodded approvingly. "When you turn pain into purpose, no curse can hold you." The night grew still. Fireflies danced around the flames as laughter returned to the compound for the first time in years. But just as they began to relax, a faint sound drifted from the woods, soft, rhythmic, distant. "Dum, dum, dum," Adaeze froze. "No, not again." Obinna stood, listening carefully. "That's not the same drum." From the darkness, a young girl's voice sang. A lullaby. It was the same tune their mother used to hum, but now it sounded different, hopeful. They followed the melody toward the trees, where the little girl, Nena, stood once more, smiling brightly. "Why are you here?" Adaeze asked gently. Nena tilted her head. "Because Mama said to tell you. Thank you. She's gone home." The girl lifted the small drum, struck it once, and it dissolved into golden dust that floated into the night sky like stars. The siblings watched in awe as the dust formed their mother's face among the stars, peaceful, radiant, free. Obinna whispered, "Goodbye, Mama." The stars flickered in response, and then slowly faded into the heavens. A soft voice echoed in the wind. "Don't forget me in your laughter." They stood together, tears in their eyes but peace in their hearts. Back in the city months later, Obinna opened a new foundation named Mama Nena Memorial School. The villagers rejoiced, and every year, on the anniversary of her passing, drums were played, not of sorrow, but of celebration. One afternoon, Adaeze stood before the students, telling them their mother's story. The children listened, wide-eyed, as she finished. Love your parents while you still can. Pride fades, but regret echoes forever. As the applause filled the air, she looked to the back of the classroom, and for just a second, she saw her mother standing there, smiling, before fading into the sunlight. If this story touched you, click the subscribe button, leave a comment sharing what lesson you learned, and like this video so it reaches more hearts. Outside, the drums began again, but this time, their rhythm was pure joy.